Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Jnana Murtim Dvandvatitam Gagan Sadrisham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Tribunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om. Adorations to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Yoga Vasistha in Utpatti Prakarana, section 115. Profound insight is being given into the illusory nature of the world and the absolute reality of the self. With a countenance lit up with a smile, Sri Rama asked, O sage, it is a great wonder that this non-existent ignorance has materialized itself in the form of the three worlds, physical, astral, and causal. Please explain to me the art of crossing the stream of illusion. Now, if you have profound understanding, the world you experience, what does that imply? For easier understanding, think of your dream world. Three things are false: the dream subject, the dream world, and dream experience. And yet you can have horrible dreams. Everything in your dream is non-existent, not even unreal, just non-existent. It never existed. If that type of insight were to develop in your mind, and you begin to compare how things in your dream seem so real, and then your dream changes, and situations change. You face adversity, prosperity, frustration, fulfillment, all types of things in your dream. And when you wake up, you forget about all that experience. In the waking world, you have the same similitude of the dream experience. You don't know who you are. Now, if you have become sensitive, then you begin to bring to your mind an insight that the waking world is also like a dream. Then what happens? Smiles blossoms up through your lips. But this is a smile at the level of intellectual grasp. You have to go many miles. Million miles. But it's a good beginning. So deep down, develop that type of simple understanding that the reality is not in the realm of your senses. All that you experience, firstly, how do you experience? Mind is the cause. How does the mind operate in your personality? Your personality, if you don't get too horrified, is like Shiva with Kailasha mountain, all Bhutganas, which means skeletons. Nobody's offended, is it? That's the personality. In this body with bones and muscles and fat and blood and all that, there is much more tender aspect of your body, brain, put into a coconut shell. Extremely tender. And that's your iPad. The I am in you using that brain. The entirety of the I am cannot express through that brain. The brain brings only extremely limited of, again, limited implies you are completely involved with a world of illusion. So if you are following that point, all your experiences, you are happy. So the brain centers have allowed you some strange names are there for happiness. Unhappy because certain things are lacking. I'm giving you more in a humorous way. In other words, all you are experiencing in the physical plane, which means practical reality. You drive your car, go into your house, cook things, and careful you don't burn your fingers or chop off your nails. That's practical reality. That's one level of your reality. Another level of your reality, the way you feel, which is much bigger world than this physical world. Whole physical world becomes little compared to that feeling aspect. And where does it come from? Again, from the same brain centers. That also has a Google type. Brings out so many spectacles that allow your feeling to operate in so many ways. And of course, you are day by day, you are aware of it. All your problems, 99% of your problems are in your feelings. And then the third level, the way you understand and evaluate things by your intellect. Even that intellect is dependent upon this iPad. In other words, look at all your experience dependent upon brain and nervous system. And how do they look? When you do surgical operation, look at them. Don't go into too much detail. The idea is that all human experiences are not the reality. But your soul relates to absolute self. For that simple simile is, you see the sun reflected in a jar. Now the reflected sun seems to have its own personality, its own predicament. But the reality behind the reflected sun is the absolute sun. You are playing that role of a reflected self. That reflected self is satisfied with this iPad. But that satisfaction is ignorance. It cannot have any fulfillment, no matter how many birth and death may come out. Fulfillment will come if that insight were to develop that all the three planes you are experiencing, the practical reality, the world of your feeling, the world of your theoretical concepts, all that put together does not equal who you are. The I am in you is completely beyond that. If you are developing the Sri Rama's type of sensitivity, and you have this whole visualization, this is the world. How vast. But then turn your attention to your nervous system. And then smile. This little thing has captured, has brought you into such a state of delusion, given you torment after torment, also given you dreams of great happiness. That little thing. One little whip, and all shakes off from your experience. Then who am I? Who are you? With that sensitivity, look at this whole project with a smile, not with a terror. The whole world is illusion. It's not a pathetic news. Also, please explain the reason why King Lavana had to go through so many painful experiences under the influence of this strange magician. Who was that magician in reality? That question relates to the story, big story I told you. But I'm not going into the storyline. The purpose of this story for you to understand. The world is illusory because King Lavana was just on his throne and a magician waves his magic wand. He just stays quiet and then within an hour or so he comes back telling a big story that covers years and years of problem. Nothing very shocking. That's exactly what happens. You go to sleep, you are in a cozy with your blankets, and then you slip into, within a moment, into a world that has been, if you begin to study the dream world while dreaming as a dream subject, you cannot figure out what was the beginning of this massive world. Millions and trillions of years have come within your range of your consciousness. And how long will it continue? And how many things have happened? All within a moment. A little momentary deviation. This point is the highlight of study of Vedanta. To go on exercising your spiritual muscles to come to the grip of that state. And it is a progressive movement. And It must continue as long as you live, never to stop. If that has become your nature, you have attained the purpose of your life. If that is not your deeper flow of life, that is not your natural aspiration, then perspiration waits for you. Go after perishable world, and nothing can you gain but perspiration. And also in the blend of the body and soul, which of the two suffers the misery of the world? And which of the two is the enjoyer of the fruits of karmas? Another point to understand that you are always a blend of spirit and matter. Matter is your body. Hands can touch so many things, but hands don't know it. Put the spoon into the soup, spoon doesn't know it, what the taste the soup has, until it comes to your tongue. So, matter aspect is not the basis of your experience. Matter simply provides instrumental aspect. In other words, you see, you experience through your senses. But senses are not the ones that really experience things. The mind is behind your senses. And you experience through your mind, but again, mind is not the ultimate. Intellect is behind your mind. And if you go through that, behind intellect is pure consciousness. Consciousness, the absolute, is the absolute reality. All your experiences, again allegorically described, they are reflections in that consciousness. Or consider consciousness as a screen in a cinema show. All your experiences in the three planes, in the plane of understanding, in the plane of feeling, in the plane of your practical reality, all are in the realm of projections, the show being projected on the screen. So, your reality is nowhere in the projected world. Your reality is the reality transcending the projections. Projections do not create any reality. Screen remains always the reality. Sri Vasistha explained, O Rama, the distinction of body and soul is imagined by the chitta or the mind. All your study and understanding, as well as bondage, the state of bondage up to the stage of release, they are to be worked in and through your mind. It is not the body but the soul that experiences the fruits of karmas. Body may get injured. Body doesn't know it, doesn't care for it. But the soul within you, being identified with the body, continues to experience it. This subtle point is known by the doctors. Therefore, if in most painful condition, you are rendered unconscious by little injections. And then they go on working with your body without your permission. I'm joking. And you don't know what is happening. Surgery is over, then you ask, Now ask about it. So what I'm implying, the body can be so distant. Actually, it is always distant. But the magic of karma that allows you to constantly view the body as you. Even the soul is nothing but a reflection of the self in the chitta, the mind. As long as the mind is unenlightened, the absolute self appearing as the individual soul experiences pleasure and pain as a result of karmas. The entire world experience relates to the reflected self. Reflected self implying the self that is being experienced through your mental process. The mind creates its own understanding of who am I. The I am being interpreted by your mind. That's one way to look at it. Simpler way, sun that is being interpreted by a little water in a jar. Reflected sun. The jiva in you is same like reflected sun. As long as the mind is overpowered by ignorance, so long one continues to dream of various conditions in the night of the world process. All happenings, events, the world of time, space, causation, all this is like a long dream created by ignorance. You are not awake. All this is nothing but play of darkness. But darkness seems to be your reality. But when the mind is illumined by knowledge, it brings awakening for the soul. And the enlightened soul, in turn, discovers its identity with the Absolute. The soul then realizes that it is ever free from all karmas and their fructifications. Follow the illustration of the reflected sun in a jar. Mentally imagine the reflected sun has its own identity. Look into it and it is complaining, look, I'm trouble. Can't stay in peace at any moment. But there are times you start giving consolation, but don't say too much. There are times things become wonderful, becomes calm, and the very sky enters into it. I float, I soar. Then you ask, make up your mind. Are you in misery? There are countless spots that say they don't want to get out. But there are some of the spots, the more sensitive, they're talking of the aspirants. They want to understand the real I am. And gradually insight is given, just like you are here in a jar. So many souls are there, countless. And just like you soul is one with Brahman, all souls are one with Brahman. Good news, therefore, you are not just belonging to this jar. You are sneaking into all the jars. You don't just belong to one family. The whole world is your family. Just as the owner of a house performs various deeds while the house itself does nothing, in the same way the soul performs all karmas while the body remains like an inert possession. Know the soul that is identified with the mind to be the creator of all its karmas and the enjoyer of their fructifications. Another reality to understand. Soul, individual soul, handles your body like a person entering a house. That's the relationship. Your house becomes like a residence. And soul becomes the owner of the residence. Karma operates in such a way that it fashions the body according to the need of your soul. Put it more in a practical way. When the soul is going to incarnate into human body, there are two stages. First, in a grihastha setup, a would-be mother is pregnant. At the pregnancy stage, soul has not been attuned to the baby in the making. The baby's body is being made, and the soul is just like you buy a place and you plan to build up a house. You keep the house under observation, but you don't enter it. Your head will break. I'm joking. The house is not ready, livable. So it takes some time. And that depends on karmas. So it is not a strict rule how long it takes. For the soul, for the fetus to be mature, and then the soul attunes itself to it. Figures it out. Now, O Rama, I will explain the cause of King Lavana's misery during this magic spell. I will simply simplify this whole thing because storyline is just meant to give you simple points, not just to stay with the story. What he is bringing out, that King Lavana once practiced Rajasuya Yajna. Rajasuya Yajna is a type of a yajna that is practiced for attaining heavenly virtue, a virtue that will lead you to heavenly enjoyment. And whoever practices it, in storyline, king of the heavenly world, Indra, becomes jealous. And he puts the person to test. But that again is story type of description. The reality is, whoever begins to practice virtuous qualities, two things open for the person. You can enjoy an astral condition of immense pleasure, or you can turn towards attaining liberation. Going to heaven is called bhoga. You are going towards with the mind to have more and more enjoyment based on your good karma. If you are advanced, then that your mind switches. You don't want to go into heavenly world for heavenly enjoyment. You choose to go towards liberation. This is dramatized in Hindu scriptures whoever begins to begin to practice a virtuous movement, Indra becomes like an examiner, tests. Is he ready for liberation? Just like you study in schools and colleges. And the same teacher who has given you all that comfort, etc., there comes a time he watches over you, gives you examination papers. And he can let you pass or he can let you just stay without success, depending upon your ability. Indra plays the same role. In brief, the story is king had prepared himself not for heavenly enjoyment. Therefore, it became the cosmic task to bring to the king an insight into the illusory nature of the world. And therefore, he had been given in a very short time a whole experience that now he didn't have to study Vedanta. It was a practical experience that the world that he experienced was not real at all. And the same way it applies to the world you experience day by day. When the purity of the chitta shines like the sun, if you don't fall for enjoyments called bhoga, and if you continue to sustain your aspiration for liberation, then what do you get? Question, right? You don't like heavenly world. Then what are you going to get? When the purity of the chitta shines like the sun, there is nothing in the world unaccomplished. What you get is a type of fulfillment which cannot be described. Two Sanskrit words, aptakama. All desires are fulfilled. As long as you are in a state of bondage, not enlightened, each time you fulfill one desire, 10 desires arise out of it. It's very productive. So having fulfilled one desire, now you are watching so many desires to be fulfilled. And that goes on and on endlessly. You will never have the fortune to feel, oh, now I'm satisfied. Enlightenment, on the other hand, all desires are fulfilled. Aptakama, there is absolute contentment. Another kritikritya. You do actions, adventurous actions, and feel successful. But each success breeds more projects. If I've succeeded and felt so good, let me do something more. And it goes on leading you to the state, I have so many wonderful things to do. And look, I'm retired. "90 candles have been blown off." So, you did so many things in life, but you don't have such fulfillment. I have done so much. Nothing. There's so much to do, and you are just... So that state of kritikritya, I have done all that is to be done. That is enlightenment. If you're not enlightened, then there is constantly going after desires. And the sense of fulfillment again skips you. All this becomes like a mirage water. You go after it, and it is not giving you your fulfillment. So when the purity of the chitta shines like the sun, there is nothing in this world unaccomplished. That's what the feeling of a sage is. Nothing is unaccomplished. Nothing unconquered. With a pure mind, all desires are satisfied. All to be negated is negated. And the highest bliss of liberation is experienced. That's your goal. Sri Rama asked, O sage, it is true that when the mind is destroyed, all miseries terminate. But since the mind is so fickle, how can it be destroyed? But destroyed term means controlled and dissolved. How do you destroy a cloud? Remove all its moisture. So destroying the mind is not like a little fighting with the mind. Mind is a bundle of desires. As desires reach the state of fulfillment, the mind dissipates. When you unmind yourself, then you are real I am. But with the mind, you are a big iPad. Sri Vasistha explained, this mind that consists of the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. In order to study the mind, you follow the gunas. How does the mind change? When sattva develops, mind develops calmness, shantavastha. Rajas develops, mind is agitated. And when tamas develops, mind becomes like creates obscurity. Most dull-wit state develops when mind is overpowered by tamas. Manda buddhi, dull-wit mind. But these three gunas are not so simple gunas. They go into combination and permutation in a countless way. In other words, it is not just sattva plus rajas plus tamas. 50% sattva, 10% rajas, 12% tamas. I'm just giving you simply. Now you can imagine countless proportions. The same situation. If tamas is dominating your mind, you face the situation in a totally different way. Everything will be seen in a negative way if tamas is dominating your mind. If rajas dominates, same situation. Your mind is jumping like a frog from here to there. When sattva, mind begins to relax and feels like it can soar. And these three go on blending in such a way that in your relationships, in all your actions, the gunas create so many variations of your experience. Led by sattva, you can deal with even inimical people in a peaceful way. Led by tamas, even with good people, you will act in a blunt manner, and so forth. And then another aspect. There is a normal blend of these three gunas, where the gunas are neither bad nor good. They are needed. You need to have normal sleep, and sleep will not come unless you have tamas. Whenever you are acting, rajas is needed. And whenever you are thinking, you need some amount of sattva to allow your mind to relax. So these three gunas, they are normal ingredients of your nature. But when they become abnormal ingredients, they get into so many combinations. The reality, however, is beyond the three gunas. The soul doesn't need to depend upon the gunas for its different experiences. The soul is all absolute consciousness. The sun does not depend upon its rainbows and reflections for being enriched. The sun is the source behind all. In other words, your soul needs the help of gunas. But when the soul attains liberation, the gunas and Prakriti, they all become like a magic show. They disappear. These three gunas arise out of Brahman and dissolve in Brahman. Let me remind you of Brahman plus his magical power. The magical power is known as Maya. That Maya is also termed as Prakriti. Brahman and Prakriti. Prakriti is the magical power of Brahman. That Prakriti comes in three grades. Sattva predominating is what we know as Maya. Maya in a special way. Rajas predominating, we call it avidya, ignorance. Tamas predominating, that tamasi Prakriti manifests in the form of matter. And matter implies your body, your senses, your vital forces, your mind, your intellect, your ego, all come under matter, Prakriti, tamasi Prakriti. Soul needs these modifications of matter for its evolution. So when the soul has entered your personality, the soul is dealing with the intellect, the ego, the chitta, the senses, the vital forces, your body, your bones, your nails, your teeth. The soul is jiva. Jiva needs this tamasi Prakriti for its evolution. And Ishvara, God, Brahman, plays the role of creation. Brahman is constantly guiding the Prakriti, how the Prakriti should evolve. If someone is sick, how to make the person healthy. If someone is lacking in his thinking, how to give proper nourishment to make the mind spur up, and so forth. So Prakriti is working under the guidance of Ishvara. So Brahma is working in one way, creating all the creative movement. Vishnu sustains it. And Shiva goes on destroying. Destroying means, if you sow a seed in the ground, three things are needed. Firstly, the proper ground where you can put the seed and begin to nourish it. Secondly, while it is being nourished, you don't want a bird to come and pick it up. There has to be the first role is Brahma. The second role, who is protecting it, sustaining it, letting the nourishment go to the right direction. That's the role of Vishnu. But while that is going on, there are stony layers in the earth, there has to be another aspect of God that breaks down those stones and allows the tender shoots to go through the rocky layers of earth. And again, even when the tree starts coming, three-aspected movement is there. One aspect creating it, another sustaining it, another disintegrating it. They are still in your own body, it's working constantly. There are thousands of cells being thrown out. Not that there are thousands. Your body is constantly in this stream. Every 9 or 10 years, your whole body has been renewed. You don't know it. So all the three aspects are operating. Aspect that is breaking down, aspect that is protecting, sustaining, aspect that is creating. This is called Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They are essentially one God in three aspects. So all this Prakriti movement is Maya, is kind of an illusion, like a dream. And not a simple dream, it's a dream within a dream. And within a dream, we go on saying. The illustration is given of, in a simple way, a dog enters into a barber's shop, full-time barber, that had so many mirrors, parallel mirrors, mirror here, mirror parallel, facing each other. And the dog comes in between these two parallel mirrors and looks. There's a dog there, growls. But while he's growling, he sees. Being the parallel mirror, there is a mirror reflecting in the mirror. It creates countless reflections. And dog who was only one, now one dog was agitating it. And now it begins to realize there are countless dogs. Looks to this side, looks to the back side, and then shapes it. That's the predicament of every soul. Since the world is of the nature of creation and dissolution, the mind too is projected and dissolved in Brahman. This mind is not an unchanging reality. Your mind is not the absolute reality, but a continuous fluctuation of illusion. The mind of an individual continues to intensify itself through desires, karmic impressions, vasanas, sankalpas. By the practice of inquiry and meditation, this mind is brought under control and is effaced from one's consciousness. Let me just remind you what we call cycle. Beginning with impressions in your unconscious called samskaras. They are the seeds. Out samskaras, there are vasanas. Vasanas are sprouted seeds. All the samskaras don't operate at once. Some samskaras come, just like the seeds stay in the earth. All of them don't come out. Some seeds match up to a proper condition for their sprouting. So the sprouted seeds are called vasanas. The vasanas stay in your subconscious. And from subconscious, your conscious mind begins to receive vasanas in the form of thought waves, little gentle thoughts, like a soft whisper. Now, depending upon your level, your ego within you, it chooses whether that vasana that has started whispering is good one. If your ego says it is, then ego will give big attention to that thought wave and help it, pat it. And vasana then becomes, the vritti becomes a desire. Once it is coming as a desire, you could have controlled your vritti easily, but desire level requires much more effort. But if you are still permits the desire, it goes into trishna. Trishna becomes craving. It becomes your identity. You cannot live without it. You are part of it. And trishna leads you to karmas. Karmas, good and bad, virtue and vice. And karmas bring about the result of karmas, pleasure and pain. And the result of karmas, they are the experiences of pleasure and pain, and all your experiences cast their seeds in your subtle, in your unconscious samskaras. So it has gone into a cycle. Samskara brings vasana, vasana brings vritti, vritti brings desire, desire becomes craving, craving brings good and bad karmas. Those karmas result in pleasure and pain, and these experiences go into impressions. So you are whirling in this whirlpool. And its cure is allowing the ego to be put into a healthy state by a question, who am I? Your I am understanding has to go on moving towards the reality, the I am in you, just like I gave you the simile of the reflected sun. If it were to develop the other, who am I? The I is the sun. And with this I'm going to go. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.